Hey cousins! Today we're designing characters for a fictional game where you're the manager of a cafe franchise and all your employees are based off drinks. So of course we have to turn the ubiquitous matcha latte and the slightly rarer Hojicha latte into collectible characters. Let's get started designing matcha latte first. When I think of a matcha latte, I think expensive, high maintenance, kind of fussy, but also cool and popular. That's the sort of vibe we're going for today. I'm gonna name this character Matsuo because I'm just very obvious with names. Let's do some traditional concept art with pencil and watercolor and play around. We don't really need to be neat at this conceptual stage. For his silhouette, I knew from the very start that I wanted him to have really wide-legged pants because that's a trend nowadays. A lot of guys really like wide, baggy pants. I want his pants to have a straight cut for an elegant feel and wide enough to make him look slimmer overall. It'll make him look more delicate, I guess, if he's slimmer, which I think will fit his character. I also want to include a Japanese influence because I just love including cultural influence in clothing designs. So I decided to base his pants on the hakama, which I think are relatively easy to take inspiration from. These long, severe pleats will make his pants look more unique. Compared to some of the other drinks I've turned into characters, matcha lattes have got to be on the easier side because of the very distinctive green and white colors and the gradient swirl. So I'm going to go for this big white sleeve jacket with these colors. It's very obvious, which will hopefully signal that he's a matcha latte themed character. Alongside the white pants, the sleeves add to the silhouette. I could make the sleeves more traditional feeling, but I just didn't want to go in that direction because I already had the pants. For his jacket, I was actually initially thinking of a cardigan first, but it looked too nerdy and I want him to look more expensive and less affable. So I tried out a leather jacket instead, and I think that the unusual colors for leather jacket make this a good fit for him. I rounded out the lapels because I wanted it not to be too intimidating or sharp. I also thought it would be a great opportunity to add some texture to the design. So I decided that the leather jacket should have a plasticky texture to it because of the plastic cup that matcha lattes come in, and also because it makes Matsuo look more artificial, which I like. I can't make Matsuo's entire design monochrome shades of green, so I decided to take inspiration from other ingredients in the matcha latte. I dyed his hair the color of honey or maple syrup, which are alternative sweeteners to sugar. I'm trying to make his hair look like it was an expensive haircut and color job. I also just think black hair on him makes him look a bit too mature. Doing traditional concept art is really fun to film and edit. I can definitely see the gap between my traditional and digital art due to the lack of practice when it comes to watercolors and also my natural messiness. But I still really love it because digital art just cannot compare to the fun of mixing and layering colors traditionally. Now it's time to move on to Matsuo's final design, which I'm gonna do in my favorite Clip Studio paint. For his shoes, I just googled Louis Vuitton shoes and hoped for the best. For his glasses, I don't really put a lot of detail into such a small part of his design, but I like to design characters with glasses if they are from Singapore because we have a severe myopia problem here. The most difficult part of his design for me was actually his shirt. I was thinking of a button down, but then it looked a bit too like office worker. And then like if I change the cut so that the button down shows more of his chest, then it looks too suave to fit his character. So I decided why not go for polo shirt? Because polo shirts, they can be kind of lame looking, but they also look really preppy. So I think it fits him. When it comes to personality, Matsuo is the sort of person people either hate or love. You either view him as hardworking or a control freak. He's either artsy or pretentious. He's clever or a know-it-all. It's either one or the other. The same way it feels like either people think matcha tastes like grass or they love it. There's not a lot of in between. In the final art, I initially drew Matsuo looking disdained, which I think he definitely has that facial expression a lot. I feel like he's very expressive, but he does have a good customer service face. He doesn't really have a good time doing barista work though. I feel like once certain customers leave, he like immediately talks shit about them with his coworkers. I feel like he's a very petty person, even if he does actually work very hard. Despite being the high maintenance sort, he is actually really hardworking and he works a lot of shifts, and he might even have two jobs at the same time while doing university because he's the sort of person whose paycheck just evaporates from his bank account within 3 days of receiving it. He spends an unreasonable amount of money on clothes and concerts and also vacations. His parents are just not going to fund this, so he has to do it himself. In the end, I decided to give him a more smiley expression, something slightly smug. At least he'll look more like the sort of character you want to collect, right? Even if the game is not real, I want to make it so that the characters I design in this series are ones you would want to have in your roster. I love collecting characters. That's why I love designing them. That's also a big reason why I'm naturally entranced by gacha games, or at least the concept of gacha games, because I don't have enough money to play them. I just think the surprise element really adds to the appeal. There's also a lot of blind box stores in Singapore, and a lot of blind box toys being sold everywhere, even in the regular bookstores. I've just really gotten into making collectible designs in general because of them, even though I don't actually buy these. If I could do anything as a job, I might have chosen blind box design. Still have an issue with gambling though. In this game, characters like black coffee or milk tea would be 1-star or common characters. And Matsuo, who is a matcha latte, he would be 3-star out of 5 stars or a rare character. Hojicha latte, however, because he's harder to find in cafes, he'll be a 4-star or super rare character. So basically their tiers are based off how hard they are to find in actual cafes. So for example, a 5-star character would be a red velvet milkshake, or this recent drink I discovered, the matcha lavender Earl Grey latte, which is one heck of a combination. One thing about matcha is that I see it combined with all sorts of other ingredients a lot, like coffee and yam and strawberry, but I've never once seen it mixed with hojicha, which I think makes sense because I don't think both of them would taste the best together. So I thought it would make sense if these two really kind of hated each other. An interesting gacha game mechanic, I feel, would be if you collected certain characters and put them to work in the same cafe branch. So you can unlock specific quests or storylines with certain pairs. Of course, realistically, this might be limited to only 1 or 2 relationships per character, especially since there will be probably a lot of characters in this game. Maybe if you put 2 characters at the same cafe, they might start dating, or I don't know, start a club or something. In this case, Matsuo will develop a one-sided resentment against Hojicha latte from day one. Except Hojicha latte doesn't know why matcha latte doesn't like him, because Hojicha latte thinks that he's just like that with everybody. Matsuo is just very petty because Hojicha gave him unsolicited advice about whisking or steaming milk or something, and he's just a massive know-it-all. Look, it's Matsuo's final design. I'm actually quite happy with him because I think that I succeeded in my goal of making him look like he's wearing an entire month's paycheck in one outfit. I gave Matsuo this umbrella as an accessory. It's actually a reference to how matcha has grown. You see, farmers actually put the tea plants under shade to force more growth into the top few leaves, which will then be processed into matcha powder. And it also has a tiny whisk charm attached to it. Now that we have our first half of the video done, let's move on to Hojicha latte, who I'm going to name Horace, because it starts with H and O. Okay, fine. I googled Japanese names that started with H and O, and I could not find any first names. If you have any better ideas, please feel free to comment down below. My excuse for his English name is that he's half Chinese Singaporean and half Japanese. I mean, I've seen people like Horace where they have both an English name and a Japanese name. Horace would be born here, and Matsuo would be a first-generation Japanese Singaporean who came here when he was young. I decided that they should both be similar but just different enough to not really mix well. I think it's interesting if Matsuo is the sort of artistic, pretentious, where he loves expensive, exclusive luxury, and Horace loves niche and very hard to find independent clothes and music and other artists. But he also has more expensive taste. Horace should also have some Japanese inspiration in his design, so I decided to give him a Haori style jacket. I think the silhouette of the jacket will make him look more relaxed. I also decided to give him these puffy pants to make him look more distinct and fashionable, just a little inspired by this type of hakama, and I think that's perfect. I think recently, maybe last year or 2 years ago, tabi shoes were trending a lot, so I thought we should give him tabi boots. To top it all off, we can either give him a bun or short spiky hair. I feel like those are the only two options. Ultimately, I decided to go with short hair because it adds a bit of roughness to the design that complements the rest of his look. I initially also wanted to give him a singlet, but I just think that a turtleneck works better at making him look more academic and intellectual. I'll just make it sleeveless so that he looks tough without his jacket on. When I design characters in the same video, I want them to look like part of a matching set so you can tell they're the same type of drink. But I also can't have them looking too similar either. I want Horace's Haori to have a gradient too, like Matsuo's jacket, but we also need to make it different. So instead of the smooth gradient of Matsuo's jacket, I decided that Horace would have a fire pattern on his Haori instead, because tea is roasted. Yeah, it definitely feels like I'm reaching, but at a certain point, I just ran out of ways to make him represent what he's supposed to represent. I am really practicing my ability to reach in my character designs now. Let's go to the digital stage. Horace is a few years older than Matsuo, and he's an architecture student while Matsuo is in graphic design. Matsuo is mincingly polite and passive-aggressive, while Horace is blunt and maybe too honest. Matsuo has many friends and Horace has a treasured few. They clearly have a lot of differences, but they do share an air of superiority even if they don't mean to. I feel like I'm making them sound unlikable right now, but they do have good traits, okay? Matsuo cares a lot about doing a good job, even if it's just being a barista. And Horace, well, he has intelligence, mostly. Maybe he just has aura and he's like 6'2". I do think that they would be fun characters to see in action, like a sitcom thing. Horace interprets Matsuo's not so nice passive aggressiveness as banter, and to be frank, he doesn't actually understand it's not really that much of a joke. Horace, not exactly the sort to sense undertones well. It might be a fun dynamic in the hands of a good writer. Unfortunately, that is not me. Okay, fine. Was I considering making these two have a romance subplot just because I think the idea for that is fun, especially for a game like this? Yes. But I have no idea how romance works. How would their relationship develop? Maybe they both really hate the same regular customer who makes them both suffer. So that's the one thing they bond over at first. And then Matsuo slowly warms up to Horace and realizes Horace is just oblivious to his bluntness. And then Matsuo is just like, okay, more forgiving. Or maybe one day Horace says, okay, oh, I'm going to this niche thing after work. It's very artsy and intellectual, but you probably don't know about it. And then Matsuo gets like irrationally annoyed because like he's all about artsy intellectual stuff. And he's so annoyed at being out-niched. He shows up at the event. But of course, Horace is also there. So the two of them accidentally end up hanging out for a whole evening. I love having fun, silly, stupid ideas like these. I'm really enjoying this series because making characters based off drinks is really pushing my character design limits and my creativity. Speaking about character design, I also did just open character design commissions. And since I just opened them for the first time, the price ranges from $20 to $60 for 3 different tiers, from simple flat paintings to more detailed full bodies like this one. I am really excited to see how this goes. I'll be finding clients mostly through YouTube because you might not know this, but I actually don't have any social media like Instagram or TikTok. I only have YouTube and Pinterest, so finding clients might be slow, but I am very interested to see how it goes, if it works, and how I'll make it work. So, cousin, if you're looking for anyone to do custom character designs for you, please feel free to message me on Ko-fi. I'd really love to work with you and give your characters justice. Back to Horace, I actually made the Haori on a separate layer this time because we kind of need to see his arms properly. His turtleneck top is kind of boring, but I think it actually works for the design very well, despite its plainness, because it makes him look more academic. The contrast with his puffy pants and his Haori was kind of a pain to draw. I tried one pattern, but it looked too weird, not fiery enough. So I switched things around. I made the colors different using the gradient map. And I made the flames thinner and longer to look more like traditional patterns. It's not exactly like a real Haori, but that's okay. It's probably nearly as expensive as Matsuo's jacket, which he judges Matsuo openly for buying and like calls him an idiot for investing in a $500 leather jacket. And then Matsuo will be like, "What the fudge? You spent $400 on yours. Why are you making fun of me?" And Haru's like, "Oh, it's not the same because I'm buying from a small studio." And then they proceed to get into an argument about it and repeat for like 20 other topics, I guess. And these are the two of them together. Oh, I'm finally done with them. I'm so happy. I actually think they turned out nicely. I hope you like them too. Hey cousins, by the way, does matcha actually taste like grass to you or no? I personally actually really enjoy matcha. Except for Oatside's matcha oat milk, which sucks. Don't buy this. If you want to see any of my designs, you can follow me on Pinterest. Or you can also look at my personal website, link down below. And if you want to see more character design content, why don't you watch this video where I turn milk tea and coffee, and also coffee tea, into characters. See you soon, cousins!